Welcome to Picks with the Professor, the show where a real statistics professor gives you sports betting tips. I'm your host, Professor Sides, and for the latest updates, information, and picks, you can follow me on Twitter at Professor Sides. Today is Saturday, June 11th, 2022, and this episode covers today's best Major League Baseball bets. I'll briefly touch on the remaining games at the end of the show in extra innings. In case you're new here, I built a mathematical model for win probability, hitter and pitcher projections, and I analyze weather data in order to make one pick and one pick only on every game played Monday through Saturday. That doesn't mean that I recommend you do the same. I'm just giving you the information as to what I like the most and where my head is for each matchup. As I go through the plays, remember that there are no locks in gambling, so I'll give you our loves, likes, and leans to help you decide which picks you might want to play and how I recommend scaling wagers. With that in mind, please understand that good and bad variance will occur, so as much as I'd like to still be profitable each and every day, that is an impossible reality for any gambler. It's been such a weird roller coaster ride this season. Early on in the season, it was like every couple of days, and then now it's been weeks. Last week was just incredible, just couldn't miss. This week just can't hit on anything. And I say at the beginning of every show, like I said, there's always, sometimes it's good variance, sometimes it's bad. A couple of things really just that I want to point out. Number one, what my commitment to you is that you're going to get transparency. I've always got the records of the sheet. Whatever the picks are, if they're good, they're bad, you're going to see it. I'm not, trying to hide anything. Everything's out on the table for you. That's what you're always going to get from me is honesty and transparency, and the good and the bad. Sometimes the benefit of it being bad is you see that it's transparent here, so when it's good, you don't ever have to worry, right? You can always just look and say, yeah, I know it's good because he showed when it was bad. So, when it's good, it'll be what it is. But the second thing, just that I want to continue to iterate is, and I say this every once in a while, maybe I should say it every day, I don't know. Make sure no matter what pick you're playing, no matter what show you're watching, no matter who you're reading up on, right, make sure you like the plays. And that's kind of my goal here on this show is to give you some information to help cut some of your research short, kind of give you some data, some weather information, maybe some trends. Just kind of give you some information. It's to give you some things to think about. Sometimes I'll try to pose questions, hey, if you think this, maybe go this way. If you think this, go this way. I want you to, say, yeah, I agree with what he's saying. I like that pick. I want to make it. And then whether we win or lose, it is what it is. Or you may say, no, I disagree with that. He kind of thinks this and I kind of think this, and that's totally fine too. I'm just trying to give you things to think about so that you can feel good about whatever picks you're making. And if you disagree with what I'm saying, that's totally fine. I'm just trying to present, again, where my head is, what my data is showing, what I'm thinking, and get you thinking about what that means and how you want to attack, especially based off the prices and the numbers that you're seeing out there. So again, hopefully that's what you're doing. I would never recommend blindly tailing anyone, no matter how good or bad things are. And you kind of seen this last week. Things just kind of change in a dime. As great as things were last week, it just one day just kind of flipped. And the same thing will happen here with this. It'll just kind of flip. Whether it'll be today, I hope so. It's much more fun when the picks are winning. Whether it's today, whether it's in the next week, it'll just start flipping, and we'll start hitting again. And so blindly tailing someone is never truly recommended. That's why I'm trying to give you the explanation, try to point out what the model says, what the underlying pieces of the model are saying. And you can say, yeah, I really agree with that, or I really don't. And you make your own decision. So always keep that in mind as you're listening to me go through the games. I'm trying to hopefully provide you with the content to help you make a decision you're comfortable with. Before we get to today's slate, a few reminders. Please hit that like button if you're on YouTube. Also, if you aren't yet, please consider subscribing or following. It's free. The only way, assuming you turn notifications on to ensure that you don't miss any of the college basketball, MLB, or college football content this channel provides. Share with a friend if you know others in the game. Hit me up on Twitter or drop a comment if you're on YouTube. I love those and try to respond to as many as I can. We'll get right to it. A lot of day games here on this Saturday. 2:10 Eastern, first pitch, Rangers at the White Sox. A nice day in Chicago. It'll be mid-70s throughout the entire day. No wind here. There should be no rain here. No rain really across baseball. There might be a scattered shower that causes a delay in a couple places. I'm going to skip basically all the rain talk because there shouldn't be any rain outs, which is nice. A delay maybe in a game or two, but it shouldn't affect things too much. Wind-wise in Chicago, it'll be mostly across, maybe in to start the game. A little more in than across, in from right field at about 10 miles an hour to start the game. So early on, maybe, especially a lefty pull hitter, when knocking the ball down a little bit, it'll shift to be more across from right field as the game moves on. Two great pitchers, Martin Perez and Lucas Giolito. I mean, what is there left to say about Perez? His projection keeps getting better. His underlying metrics are fantastic. Not quite as good as that 150 ERA. Again, I don't think that's breaking any news. It's really hard to have, whether it's FIP or XFIP or expected ERA in that 150 range. But fantastic numbers. He projects, or excuse me, the advanced metrics think he's more of a low 3 type guy. The projection still has him, in the upper 3s, but that just gets better and better by the day. He's looked fantastic, putting it together, a decade after he first came up with the Rangers. And Giolito, obviously, another guy took him a while to put it together, not quite as long as Perez. Having another solid year, 350 ERA, advanced metrics, just a shade worse than that. Projects to be very good. 2 pitchers that I really like. Model says White Sox minus 140. My take on the side on this game is it's really hard to go with one side or the other. That doesn't mean there's not value to be had either way. I'm not saying, if you like one side or the other, obviously go for it, like I was saying in the intro. But it's really hard for me personally because the number would indicate that maybe the White Sox are the smarter play, but fading Perez this year has been a horrible move. And the model is, I mentioned this before, is generally slow to adjust to some of these pitchers who start off really, as well, especially as well as Perez has. It's going to adjust a little bit quicker because of how good Perez has been, but it's still going to be relatively slow, especially for a guy who has this much data. A younger pitcher does this, it's going to adjust quickly. Mackenzie Gore, we'll talk about him later, is a guy who it's adjusting quickly on because we don't have a lot of data, and it's saying, yeah, he's been hyped up and he's pitching well, and that is good things. Perez has a lot of data that's not good. So the question you have to ask yourself is how real that is. I lean towards more real. So with that said, it's hard to really peg what the right number should be. If the model's a little bit, disrespective of Perez, maybe the number should be more like minus 135, minus 130. It's also just then tough to back the Rangers. We saw it last night that I just do not trust that bullpen whatsoever. So for me, it's a stay away on the side. I like both these pitchers, though. I'm going first 5 under 4. I love the even money here. I think this should either be a situation where if we're getting these types of odds, I feel like it should be at 3.5. Or if we're at 4, I feel like we should be letting juice. I think we got a lot of value at this number. I kind of expected this to be under 4, more like minus 120. So lots of value here. A-grade pick for me. I love both of these starting pitchers. The White Sox offense can be kind of hit or miss. And like I said, I just really love the way Perez is pitching. He's just sitting down everybody, it seems like. So I kind of want to back him one way or the other. Like I said, I really do not trust this Rangers bullpen at all, so I want no part of that. I know that Perez is a guy who can easily go 7 innings, but I just don't want to deal with however many innings this Rangers bullpen might throw. And the White Sox bullpen, fairly average. It's got a couple guys who are solid at the back end, but they're also kind of hit or miss, so it's just easy to avoid that. We've seen kind of an epidemic these last couple of days of starting pitchers not being able to make it 5 innings. That's kind of my one fear with Giolito. Sometimes his pitch count gets up. I need both these guys to get through 5. If we have one of these situations like we've seen lately, some of the first 5 unders have been really struggling these last couple of days because countless times of these starters pulled either in the 5th or before the 5th starts. We got to get 5 innings out of these guys. If we do, I think we're safe here. First 5 under 4, even money, A-grade pick for me on the south side of Chicago. 2:15 Eastern, first pitch, Reds at the Cardinals. Little warm day here in St. Louis. Low 80s to start, upper 80s to finish. A slight breeze, about 5 miles an hour, blowing out to left center or center field. So a little bit of a boost to the bats here with this warmer temperature. Wind probably won't help too much, but you might get a gust as an extra boost. Hunter Green versus Adam Wainwright. Green kind of up and down on the season. Looked good his last start. He's had some shakier starts. 5.40 ERA. Advanced metrics say he should be almost a run better than that, which still isn't great. He actually projects better than that. He projects much closer to be a league average pitcher, actually slightly better than league average, even though his advanced metrics don't say that. Partially, again, a prospect pedigree giving him a little bit of a boost. Obviously, a guy who throws that hard can obviously shut down an offense. But for the most part, even though I think Hunter Green will become a very good pitcher, basically just an average pitcher. And maybe that sometimes helps to think of things that way instead of the name, instead of the hype, that sort of thing. Just say, hey, we got just an average pitcher for the Reds. For the Cardinals, Adam Wainwright, a guy we've talked a lot about, a guy who just always seems to outperform his metrics and his projection probably being pulled down because of his age. The guy who had a great year last year, a pretty good year this year, upper 2 ERA, advanced metrics, not quite that good, but Wainwright's still a good pitcher. The question you have to ask yourself is how good, how much of the advanced metrics, being a full run higher than his ERA, how much of that is, something that we're going to see going forward, or how much of this is Wainwright just a crafty guy who knows how to pitch? To some extent, I kind of think it's a little bit of the latter. We saw the same thing last year. His advanced metrics weren't kind to him, and he continued to pitch well all season. So I'm a believer in Wainwright here. That's why I'm taking the Cardinals minus 168. It's an A-grade pick for me. The model thinks minus 175, and as I said, I think the model is selling Wainwright short. I really think this number should be more like 180 or 190. So 168, I think, offers fantastic value. Even into the low 70s, I'd give this an A grade. If you get into the upper 170s or low 180s, maybe more like a B pick. You could look run line. I don't love run lines with home teams. It's just something I personally don't like. That's priced into the value. So when you talk about value, I think the value is probably about the same. I just rather lay a little bit of odds here and give myself a little bit more of a cushion. That's just my personal take. Total is 8 with a warm day. Something to think about there, getting that push at 8. I kind of think this total should be 8.5. Maybe a Cardinals team total over. Maybe it would be a smarter play. The Reds didn't score last night. The Reds struggled offensively the day before. Something to keep in mind, the model has projected the Reds offense to be way below average here, and they've scored a lot of runs lately, but I talked about at the time, a lot of it was against weaker pitching. They took advantage of it. A lot of it was in Cincinnati, where you have such a massive hitter's ballpark. And these last couple of games, we're kind of seeing what the model said the Reds offense should be, which is not very good. Maybe you can take advantage of the weather and the park, but not a good offense. Weather would help them today. Going against Wainwright wouldn't. So I don't really know how many runs the Reds will score. That's kind of what would make me a little bit hesitant of the over 8, as much as I like the push protection on the 8 there. Just don't know how many they'll score. But the Cardinals, against an average pitcher, against a below-average Reds bullpen, on a warm day, they're going to have a heck of a more fun time batting today than they did against Castillo yesterday. I think the Cardinals could score some runs. Maybe a Cardinals team total over would be another way I would look in this one. My official pick, I'm going to keep it simple. Just take the Cardinals on the money line at minus 168. I think that number offers just some good value. Pick gets an A grade from me. 4:05 Eastern first pitch, Brewers at the Nationals. Nice day in Washington. Low 70s for the entire game. No real wind to speak of. It'll stay under 5 miles an hour. This is a fascinating matchup because Lauer has been awesome. His advanced metrics, still think he's good, not as good as he's shown, but I've talked about Lauer all season. I think he's a guy who the Brewers have just kind of figured out a way to maximize his, what he does well. I really like Lauer. I really like backing Lauer. Patrick Corbin's a guy who we faded a lot. It's worked out really well. And I said this the last couple of times Corbin's pitched. He's not as bad as that 6.70 ERA, but he's not good. The projection has him below league average. At some point, I think he's even worse than his projection just because I've seen him pitch a few times. I've seen the movement on his slider specifically is just not quite as sharp. He's having a hard time locating it. His fastball is just flat. I mean, it's not the same guy we saw a few years ago. I think his projection is kind of still hanging on from that. Oh, well, he can be kind of average, but man, he doesn't look good. We've been really profitable fading him. He's lost a lot of games and a lot of games big. Everything points to the Brewers here. They do have the better offense than the Nationals. They have the better bullpen. They have the much better starting pitcher. But what's going on with the Brewers? I mean, they're finding new ways to lose games, whether it's low scoring, whether it's high scoring, whether it's starters blowing up, whether it's bullpen blowing up. The Brewers are just all out of sorts. But yesterday I thought, hey, playing the Nationals, that'll be the cure for the problem. That was wrong. I'm back in the Brewers again today, but you gotta, it's a little bit of a scary pick given the way the Brewers have played. But if we remove the emotion of the Brewers' struggles here recently, we do have to acknowledge a couple things. Number one, teams that are cold turn that around quickly, right? There's no real evidence that we found statistically that said that teams that are losing tend to lose at a higher rate than indicative of their talent level, or teams that are winning tend to win at a higher rate than their talent level, right? Momentum's only as good as the next day starting pitcher. So it's one of those things where as bad as the Brewers have looked, again, we have no evidence we have evidence that good teams win and bad teams lose, but we have no evidence that a good team that is hot or cold will then continue that going forward. It's more just this is what has happened rather than a predictive metric. It's like the difference between ERA and something like FIP or XFIP. ERA is great to tell us what happened. It's not great to tell us what will happen. The Brewers have been bad, but that's not indicative to tell us what will happen. So we got to keep it in the back of our mind. And I just really think this is a huge starting pitcher mismatch here in favor of the Brewers. I want to fade Corbin. I like Lauer. As bad as the Brewers have been, none of those have been with Lauer on the mound. I'm taking the Brewers on the run line, even money. I just can't be that confident in it because the Brewers offense, I just don't know what I'm expecting. I think they scored some runs last night. That wasn't their problem, right? So I think the Brewers offense scores. I think they can win this one handily. I think they take advantage of Corbin not being a very good pitcher. But I'm not enough confident. I don't think the number's right. The model doesn't think there's a huge mathematical edge. So I like this side. I like the run line, but it's not one that I think the price is right enough to get to an A-grade pick. B pick for me there on the Brewers run line. I like it, don't love it. 4:05 Eastern first pitch, Diamondbacks at the Phillies. Nice day in Philadelphia, low 70s. No real wind to speak of. It'll stay under 5 miles an hour. Madison Bumgarner versus Zach Wheeler. Bumgarner, a guy who his ERA continues to trickle up. I've been kind of talking about this lately. His advanced metrics and his projection are not as positive as his results. He was a guy early on I liked to back because I think people thought he would just be terrible. And I think kind of what you're seeing here from him, he's actually, again, been better than the metrics would indicate, but he's been a guy who is, not as good as he's looked. But again, he's not as terrible as people thought coming into the season. Zach Wheeler, on the other hand, what's more to say about this guy? Very good pitcher. We all know about him. Good numbers, good ERA, good advanced metrics, good projection. I don't think I can add any value to the conversation about him. We all know about Zach Wheeler. Model says Phillies minus 206. Yesterday, the model had a Phillies edge. I didn't play it. Obviously, regretted that decision. Today, the model says there's no edge on the other side. The line movement on this one will be interesting. If people continue to back the Phillies here, which is what I expect, there might become an edge later on the Diamondbacks. It wouldn't be crazy to back the Diamondbacks if the number gets high enough. The question you have to ask yourself is, what number is that? Personally, I probably would be needing something like a plus 220, maybe plus 225 if it gets out there. It wouldn't be a play I'd want to put a lot on, but just a sprinkle, something on, just in case of a little flyer of if Bumgarner pitches well. We have seen that park, again, yesterday didn't happen, but that park become more of a pitcher's park than in years past. If Bumgarner's on, I think Wheeler will be on. If it's a low-scoring game, anything can happen. At some point, there's value if the number gets high enough. Right now, I don't think it's there, so I'm staying away from the side. Instead, I'm going Diamondbacks under 3.5. I don't love the odds, minus 142. That's why it's a B-grade pick. We're already having to invest so much to stay under this 3.5 number. I wouldn't go under 2.5. I just hate going under 2.5 personally. If you have under 3 at better odds, I think that's probably safe as well. Maybe it pushes, but it's nice to be protected against one bad inning. Wheeler, I think, goes 7 innings. I think he gives up like 1 run. So then as long as the bullpen doesn't completely, kill us, if they go 2 innings, give up 1 run, Diamondbacks score 2, I think that's probably the most likely scenario. Could easily get to 3, could easily only score 1. I think there's a lot of ways this wins. So I really like under 3.5. Only a B-grade pick, though, because those odds are just not exciting for me personally. 4:10 Eastern first pitch, Pirates at the Braves. Warm day in Atlanta, upper 80s to start, still staying in the mid-80s by finish. Winds will be blowing in at about 5 miles an hour, so probably not much of an effect there. Definitely a boost to the bats, unless the wind picks up with that warmth. Zach Thompson versus Charlie Morton. Morton's a pitcher who I kept waiting to come around on, and it just hasn't happened. He still projects well based off how good he was last year and before, especially how he finished last year. But at this point, Zach Thompson is the better pitcher in this matchup. Their advanced metrics are almost identical. Thompson's looked much better recently after a bad start. Thompson's a pitcher who I said previously I kind of liked, and he really struggled out the gate, but he's looking a lot better now. Not a guy who I think is great by any stretch of the imagination, just a guy I thought was undervalued last year and got us some money at the end of the season then. And that's kind of how he's been looking here again. Not great, but just a solid pitcher. And right now, that's not what Charlie Morton is. Obviously, he can turn around at any time. But right now, it's not a crazy statement to say that Zach Thompson is the better starting pitcher in this game. And that's just ignoring the fact that he's got an ERA better. Again, I don't think ERA is predictive whatsoever going forward. Ignoring that, I still think right now Thompson's the better pitcher, which is crazy to say. Model says Braves minus 204. That says there's an edge on the Pirates at plus 214, and I'm going to back it. I think that's a lot of value here. I think Braves minus 204 actually is a little too high. Again, I think the Braves win this game. That's the most likely scenario. The model says they win at 67% of the time. I think that's a shade high. I think probably more like 66% makes a little more sense. I would make this number more like Braves minus 190, maybe 195. I think the model is still giving Morton a little bit too much respect for last year. I haven't seen it this year. I own the guy in fantasy, and I've watched more of his starts, and he just doesn't look good with his command. He did this last year. He figured it out. Maybe he'll do that again. Maybe at some point age just gets all of us, especially from a physical standpoint. If he can't find that command, and the Pirates have the better starting pitcher here, as bad as the Pirates offense is, getting plus 214 with the better starting pitcher is just too much value to pass up. Again, not a play that I think wins all the time, just a play that I think in the long run is going to make us some value. So I'm taking a fly here in the Pirates, plus 214. B pick for me, hard to go with an A pick on such a big underdog. But when I think the Pirates have a chance to win this game, at least much more so than the odds indicate. So I think it's a profitable venture to back the Pirates tonight in the long term. 14 Eastern first pitch, Blue Jays at the Tigers. Nice day in Detroit, mid-upper 70s throughout. Winds blowing in about 10 miles an hour from right field or right center. Yesterday took the Tigers. Model said there was value. I made the comment. I said, I don't think they'll win, but I think there's value on it. My goodness, they didn't even come close. Today might be just as bad with the pitching matchup here. Kevin Gausman versus Bo Brisky. Brisky's a pitcher who has an ERA near 5, but his advanced metrics are almost a full run worse. Gausman's a pitcher who has an ERA under 3, and his advanced metrics say it should be almost a full run better. I mean, this is a huge starting pitcher mismatch. We know it's a huge mismatch with regard to the offense. We know it's a huge mismatch with regards to the bullpen. This is a situation that is Blue Jays, Blue Jays, Blue Jays. The Tigers would have some value if the price gets high enough. But, I mean, you're talking about value where it's like maybe you drop a half unit on it just because. But, I mean, I'm needing like plus 250, maybe even higher to back the Tigers. It's really hard to see the Tigers winning this game. I just don't like this starting pitcher setup. I don't like the mismatch on the offense and the relievers, nothing. The only thing the Tigers have going for them is the boost they get for home field in this game. I'm taking the Blue Jays on the run line. It's minus 143, and it's an A-grade pick for me. The model says there's the tiniest bit of edge right now on the money line. I think there's an even bigger edge on the run line. Minus 143 indicates that if this wins upper 50% of the time, it's profitable. And I see this more like about 2/3 of the time, this is a Blue Jays runaway victory. The other third of the time is what you're talking about, either a tight game and maybe the Tigers pull it out. But I don't see – it seems almost impossible the Tigers win this by blowout. Of course, I say that. That's what will happen because baseball's weird, right? But it seems really unlikely the Tigers win big. And like I said, it seems about 2/3 of the time the Blue Jays are just going to destroy the Tigers here today. And about another third of the time is when it's a toss-up, anything can happen. And that run line probably more favors the Tigers and or they got a chance to pull it out on the money line. This one's anywhere near that 2/3 of the time that I would give it. Minus 143 is fantastic odds. Blue Jays today, that's the smartest way to back them, in my opinion, is on the run line at minus 143. I'm giving that an A grade. Still 4:10 Eastern first pitch. Athletics at the Guardians. A nice day in Cleveland. 74 degrees at start, 74 degrees at finish. A slight breeze blowing out, but it should stay at or under 5 miles an hour. So no real effect there. Pretty neutral environment all around in this one with regards to runs. Frankie Montas versus Zach Plesac. Edge to the ace in the starting pitcher department. For sure. Would not deny that. Montas, a 3.06 ERA, and his advanced metrics line up right with that. So, I mean, what you've seen is what you're getting. He's a very good pitcher. I think we all know that. Projects to not be quite as good simply because it's hard to keep an ERA that low, especially in this designated hitter environment. But, I mean, a great pitcher. Don't want to take anything away from him. And a guy who can go deep. And that matters, especially with how bad that A's bullpen is. A's gave it up again last night with that bullpen. Like I said, you want to somehow figure out a way to fade the A's bullpen, whether that's in the full game or whether it's a second half type bet or a live bet, whatever it may be. That A's bullpen is really rough. Zach Plesac, on the other hand, not good. Good start last time out. A solid pitcher. I project him a little bit worse than league average. Maybe he's closer to league average. Nowhere near as good as Montas is. Again, huge edge to the A's with regards to the starting pitcher, but that's, of course, the only place they have an edge. The Guardians have a much better offense, much better bullpen, and the game's in Cleveland. The model says Guardians minus 131. I'll take the Guardians minus 116. I'm going to trust the model here with an A grade. I'm going to say that there's a lot of value at this number. I say the Guardians win 56 or 57% of the time, and at minus 116, that's a profitable venture. So I'm on the Guardians. It's never fun to fade a guy like Montas. Key to this game is going to be the Guardians getting Montas out, hopefully after 6. They get him out after 6 and get 3 innings of the A's bullpen. I really like their chances. Plesac, again, just a mediocre pitcher, but a mediocre pitcher gets this A's offense, has a real chance of having success. Plesac's that kind of hit or miss guy. Again, more likely to hit on a weaker offense than not. Trust in the model here. Model says minus 131 is a good price, so I like minus 116 a lot. I'm giving that an A grade. I'm trusting the model. 14 Eastern first pitch, Orioles at the Royals. A hot one in Kansas City, 90 degrees. Winds blowing out to left field at about 10 miles an hour for the entire game. And 2 pitchers I don't think are very good. Tyler Wells for the Orioles. Solid season so far, upper 3 ERAs. Projects much worse than that, though. If you look at just the recent metrics, projects better than average. But if you look at the entirety of the projection based off of previous year's data, projects below average. So overall, that kind of all washes out where I'm projecting him at league average at this point. That's kind of the question you have to ask yourself with him. How much of this recent, success is real versus how much do you trust all of the data that we have on Wells? His advanced metrics, not great. His advanced metric for the season, say his ERA should be north of 4.5. So I don't really believe in Wells at all. Dustin Lynch, also not a good pitcher. A 5.36 ERA, probably not that bad, but still not close to league average. Model says Royals minus 117. I'm trusting the model again. I'll take Royals plus 105. Huge mathematical edge here. I'm giving this an A-grade pick. First game of this series, Royals and the Orioles played, and I said, the model says there might be a slight Royals edge, but I don't know if I believe it. Royals won. Last night, I said, model said there's a Royals edge. I said, okay, sure, I'll just put a unit on it. Royals won again. I gotta stop doubting the model. I built the model. I gotta trust the dang thing, right? So model says Royals minus 117 plus 105 is great value. Doesn't mean they'll win, right? Minus 117 implies they win 54% of the time. It basically says that there's not much difference between these two teams today, that the edge that the Orioles might have with the starting pitcher is A, minimal, and B, offset by the fact that the Royals, I project to have a slightly better offense. But basically says this is all about the home field and this is a toss-up game otherwise. I think that makes sense. This is a toss-up game. The Royals at home at plus 105 is absurd. A-grade pick for me on the Royals. I'm trusting the model. And I'll give you a little bonus play here on this one. Total of 9.5, way too low. If I was making 2 picks on this game, I'd feel very comfortable taking the total over when you're talking about 90-degree weather, you're talking about a wind blowing out to left field. This is bombs away type weather. Neither offense is very good, but I think both offenses are less bad than the pitchers, if that makes sense. We've seen this series already have a lot of crooked numbers. I think we're going to see a lot of crooked numbers today as well. But I'm going to trust the model for my official pick and back the Royals. Again, I also like that over, though. Still 4:10 Eastern, Marlins at the Astros. Braxton Garrett versus Framber Valdez. Luis Garcia couldn't make it through the 5th inning. That cost us in our first 5 under. Like I talked about earlier, just seeing all these pitchers not be able to get through 5 here all of a sudden, it's what we expected to see at the first couple starts, not what we expected to see lately. Should be an issue today with the Astros throwing Framber Valdez. He's been fantastic all season. Maybe not as good as that 2.61 ERA, but advanced metrics are fantastic, projects fantastic. Framber's having a fantastic year, and I expect him to keep that up against a subpar Marlins offense. You saw what I talked about with that Astros bullpen yesterday. It can be really hit or miss, especially once they start losing. Just kind of the wheels fall off. They don't have enough depth there in that bullpen. Braxton Garrett only pitched once this season. Didn't go well for him. Projects to be well below average as well. Probably not a guy who's going to go too deep into the game before it'll turn it over to a pretty good Marlins bullpen. And the Marlins bullpen with depth, I'm not really sure how many runs the Astros will score here. I think they'll get a few, but that Marlins bullpen is capable. Garrett starting off, probably not the best pitcher. It probably benefits the Marlins to tell him just go hard one time through and then turn it over to the bullpen. That's my personal take. They don't pay me to manage, so I guess, take that for what it's worth. But Framber Valdez is a guy who I definitely want to back. I can't really back the Astros, though. The price is insanely high. Model says Astros minus 226. I'm seeing minus 250. And I think the Astros win this game. Again, the model says they win almost 70% of the time. So I want to make sure that you're not mishearing me. I think the Astros win this game, but minus 250, weird things happen in baseball games, and the Marlins pitchers aren't horrible. The Marlins won last night, and it's not like that was the craziest fluke. And obviously, Pablo Lopez is really good. But, this Marlins team isn't bad. This isn't a situation like Blue Jays Tigers where the Tigers are really bad and the Blue Jays are pretty good, right? This Marlins team isn't bad. So, minus 250 is just insane. There's no way you could convince me that there's value in the Astros money line unless there's a ton of Marlins money that comes in. If I could lay minus 220 with the Astros, absolutely. But that's 30 cents off from what I'm seeing right now. So, that would be a heck of a line move. Like I said, I think the Astros win, but I cannot back them at that price. And I can't back them on the run line because the run line doesn't offer any value either, especially with it being at home. Instead, I'll take Marlins under 3.5. I don't think it's a very similar situation that we said in one of the games at the top. Really like this. I don't think they get to 4, but I don't love the odds at minus 140. So it's a B pick for me. We're already risking almost 3 units just to win 2. I don't think the Marlins score. I think if you go under 3, I think at better odds, I think that makes sense. I just can't give this an A-grade pick because the odds are just not worth it. And that takes us to extra innings. Got actually a couple of B picks in here for you in extra innings, just think games I have less to say about. We'll start off at 7:15 Eastern. First pitch, Cubs at the Yankees. A nice night in New York, mid to low 70s. A slight breeze out, only about 5 miles an hour, though, so probably not too much help. Matt Swarmer versus Jordan Montgomery. I don't know what to make of Swarmer. He's looked pretty good in his first 2 starts, but he still projects to be well below average. And take note, it's only 12 innings, but in those 12 innings, his advanced metrics say he is below average. So I would not be fooled by that ERA. That's my personal take. Again, feel free to disagree with that, but you look into the advanced metrics, they're not kind to him. Jordan Montgomery having a fantastic year. Advanced metrics pretty solid. Projects to be a pretty good pitcher. I really like the Yankees in this one. I'm trusting the model. The model says the price should be minus 243. So I'll back the Yankees at minus 235 with a B pick. I think there's a little bit of value here, but the value is starting to eke away. It's almost like that Astros game we talked about with a couple key differences. Number one, I think this Cubs team is a little bit worse than the Marlins team. And I think that at this number at minus 235, you've got just a little bit of value still left in it. If this gets out to that 250 like the Astros number is, it's really lost all its value. And at that point, maybe it's a C pick or it's a stay away because the value just zapped out of it. But 235, a little bit of value left, so B pick for me on the Yankees. One other B pick for you, 10:05 Eastern, first pitch Mets at the Angels. Mid-70s to start, low 60s to close in Anaheim. As always, a wind blowing out to left center, 5 to 10 miles an hour to start, but it'll die down as the night goes along. Carlos Carrasco versus Michael Lorenzen. I like Carrasco. He projects pretty well. I don't think Lorenzen's bad. I project him about league average. Both of these pitchers, good ERAs. I think they're both solid pitchers. Model says Mets minus 120. Again, I'm giving Trout 50-50 to play. He was supposed to play yesterday. Didn't. I made the comment. I said, hey, if Trout's not going to play, there's a lot of value at that number for the Mets. Number moved out to the Mets once he was announced not playing. Mets won fairly handily. Kind of the same thing tonight. If Trout's not playing, this number should be higher. I'd jump all over Mets minus 130. If he is playing, I don't think I'd back the Angels necessarily, but at that point, it's just a different calculus. I'll take Angels under 3.5 as a B pick. It's plus 105. I think it's kind of why I like it there. The Angels scoring 4 or 5 isn't crazy. But at plus 105, I think the Angels are more than 50-50 to stay under 4 than to go over 4. Probably barely better than 50% chance. So at plus 105, I think we got some pretty good value. So it's a B pick for me there. Again, I like this a whole lot more if Trout doesn't play. Even if he does, again, that offense is just so thin right now without 2 of their top 4 hitters. And again, if Trout doesn't play, it's 3 of their top 4 hitters. So B pick for me on the Angels team total under 3.5 at plus 105. I really think that the odds should be more like minus 110 there. So some good value in my opinion. I got one lean for you. 10-10 Eastern first pitch, Red Sox at the Mariners. Couldn't quite get there with that last run yesterday. One extra run there gets us to 4-4, which implies that we will get a 9th run. Just couldn't quite do it. Started off with 4 runs in the first 5 innings, looking good. And then surprisingly, the Red Sox bullpen came through and looked fantastic. Tonight, it'll be Michael Wacha versus George Kirby. The model says Red Sox minus 104. And I'm going to be honest with y'all, I have no idea how it came up with that number. I can't figure it out. Red Sox minus 104 implies that they'd win 51% of the time, which means I've got to find 4% value to shift from home field to give to the Red Sox. And I don't know where that's coming from. Kirby's a better pitcher than Wacha by far. Wacha has a 2 ERA, but his advanced metrics say that it should be 4. I don't believe in Wacha at all. Again, great season so far, great results. I don't believe in him. I think Kirby is really good. Maybe the Red Sox have a better offense, I guess. I have no idea where this number came from. I can't figure it out. I'll trust the model. I'll take the Red Sox plus 105. I'm only giving it a C grade though. I'm backing it as an official pick, showing I'm trusting the model, but I can't be that confident because the number doesn't really make sense to me, and I really don't like backing Wacha against Kirby. So only a C grade pick because I don't know what the model's thinking. If I didn't have the gimmick of making one pick and one pick only, I would completely stay away from this game because in general, I would say, oh yeah, take the Mariners minus 115. But then I look at what the model said, and I'm like, wait, what? So to me, it's a very confusing game. I'll trust the model, just a C pick though. I like I said, I don't understand how the model thinks the Red Sox should be favored, but I'll trust it. Only a lane though. And then we've got 4 more games that do not have lines as of yet, and or don't have all the markets open. So I want to be able to look at those before making an official pick. I will tweet out all of these. First one is a 2-10 start between the Rays and the Twins. Rasmussen let us down last night. Looked good through 4, fell apart in the 5th. Again, an epidemic of this lately. Today, it'll be in the mid to low 70s in Minnesota. A slight breeze, 5 to 10 miles an hour. Out to left center, out to left maybe to start the game. Maybe a tiny bit of a boost to the bats there. Shane Baz making his season debut here for the Rays versus Chichi Gonzalez, who went 3 innings in his lone start. So not a lot of information about these two pitchers here at the big league level this season. Projection-wise, though, I have Baz at a guy who projects a little better than league average rate-wise, gets a little bit of a ding, and that I don't project him to go deep. Chichi Gonzalez, though, I have no faith whatsoever. And model says Rays minus 120. This is taking into account how good the Twins' offense has looked lately, but it's a real starting pitcher mismatch in favor of the Rays here. So when a number comes out on that, I will tweet out a pick with a little bit of a justification. As always, based on the price, right? That's really what matters here in this business. 7:15 first pitch, Dodgers at the Giants. Chilly night in San Francisco. As always, I'm sure you're shocked. Low 60s, winds blowing out 15 to 20 miles an hour. But again, in that park, they've built it to minimize that. The winds swirl around. I don't really know what that means there. Again, unless you're there at night. Clayton Kershaw versus Sammy Long. Long making his season debut, was fairly solid last year for the Giants. Projects to be, again, a little better than average on the rate metric portion of it. Doesn't project to go long. Kershaw, fantastic results this year. Fantastic advanced metrics. Projects out to be a good pitcher. Kershaw's a guy at this point, still got it, still looking good, coming back from injury here. Model says Dodgers minus 137. When we see a number again, I'll tweet something out there. And then we've got a doubleheader between the Rockies and the Padres. The first game will be at 4:10 Eastern, the second at 10:10 Eastern. First game, nice weather. We'll have winds blowing across. It'll be mid-70s. Ryan Feltner versus Mike Clevenger. Huge starting pitcher mismatch for the Padres. Padres had an easy win last night. I think the Padres have an easy win here in this first game. I am seeing numbers out there at several books. Again, I make all the picks at one book on BetStamp. Again, I've mentioned this before, but in case you missed it, I'm trying to handicap myself. I'm trying to make my numbers look worse because if I encourage you to shop around, but if I shop around and I can show massive profits by shopping around and you don't have that same availability, that's not really helping you, right? So I'm just picking one book, staying consistent, but I'm seeing a lot of books already had a number on this before I hit the record button. See numbers around minus 200. That's an A-grade pick for me in the Padres. If you're seeing that type of number, I saw one book had a price that started with a 1. Model says Padres minus 234. When I get done recording, I'll check to see if there's a number up. So I may actually tweet that pick out before this recording comes out. But low 200s is fantastic. I think the Padres win this first game handily. Huge starting pitcher mismatch. Feltner's advanced metrics not as bad as that 5.85 ERA, but still projects to be below average. Clevenger's a pitcher who's kind of getting going here now, coming back from injury, looking good, and a guy I definitely trust. I like the Padres in that first game as long as the price stays reasonable. Your model thinks 234 is the right number. Game 2, weather will get a little chilly. It'll be upper 60s to start, mid 60s to close. Wind still blowing across. Kyle Freeland versus Mackenzie Gore. Freeland just kind of an average pitcher, right? Not a guy who's bad, not a guy who's great, but a guy who's respectable. Mackenzie Gore, fantastic. 150 ERA in the season. Advanced metrics, think it should be a run higher, but that's still very good. Projects to be pretty good going forward. A guy whose projection is getting better and better, aggressively better and better as we move forward. To have a guy in his first season already project a full standard deviation below average, and that says something. We've got a couple good young pitchers in baseball that are a lot of fun to watch. Mackenzie Gore is one of them. I really like Gore. Freeland, though, again, not bad. I trust Freeland a lot more than I trust Feltner. I think that the upgrade from Feltner to Freeman is more than the upgrade from Clevenger to Gore. Clevenger and Gore relatively similar. I think Gore projects on a rate basis to be a little bit better. So I think it's a tiny upgrade from Clevenger to Gore, but I think it's a big upgrade from Feltner to Freeland. That's why the model thinks Padres only minus 223 from this one. So model thinks that the Padres win handily, but shouldn't be priced quite as steep. There's no team totals out yet. I really want to look at the team total market on this one before making a pick for the late game. A recap on the A picks for me today. Rangers, the White Sox. I've got first 5 under 4 at even money. I've got the Cardinals minus 168 at home against the Reds. I've got the Blue Jays on the run line at minus 143 at the Tigers. I've got the Guardians minus 116 at home against the Athletics. And I've got the Royals plus 105 at home against the Orioles. And that's all I have for you today. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Picks with the Professor. A reminder to check out the Google Sheet for model picks, projections, and results. You can find that link and more. The website, www.pickswiththeprofessor.com. If you haven't done so yet, please click that subscribe button to ensure all the sports betting content we provide on this channel is dropped right into your feed. I will see you Monday. I'll post model output tomorrow. Maybe picks. Kind of depends. I have a baseball doubleheader tomorrow. It starts at 9 a.m., so I'll have a lot happening in the morning, and I'll be busy into the afternoon. It's supposed to be like 103 here, so keep me in your thoughts and prayers and my team that none of us have a heat stroke playing 2 baseball games in 100-degree weather here in the DFW area. But best of luck this weekend. And until next week, remember, you can eat your betting money, but please don't bet your eating money.